If you're serious about four-wheeling, you know that weight is the enemy. Just ask any of those jacked up diesel truck drivers out there. Or better yet, you can just ask my friend Jeff, whose Ford F-250 earned the nickname Super Stuck for its ability to get beached, well, pretty much anywhere. Anyway, what happens when you add a whole bunch of weight to a serious off-road machine? Well, that's what I want to find out, and I've got some friends to help me. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Don't worry, we're going to get to the good stuff in a bit, but there is some important housekeeping we need to take care of first. And the first one is probably the most important, and that's you can only get this plug-in powertrain with the four-door version of the Wrangler, but that gave engineers a handy place to stick the battery packets right back there under that rear seat. You need that space for a battery like this. Now this one I'm driving, it's the Rubicon, so the most hardcore off-road version of the Wrangler, but if it's a little too much for you, there are a couple other trims in this 4xe you can choose from. But I have to say, if you're talking about the sum of their parts, this one makes the most sense financially. Let's forget about the hybrid stuff for a second and just talk about the Wrangler Rubicon Unlimited, this four-door version. If you want one, the cheapest you're going to get one is $55,000 before tax, depending on the engine you choose. This one I'm driving, it's $62,000, but that's before you consider any of the provincial incentives you can get in BC, Quebec, or PEI. Now, some bad news. This does not qualify for the federal tax rebate in Canada because the starting price is too high, but I still say if you're shopping for a Jeep Rubicon, this is the one to buy. And I have to admit, I didn't always feel that way, especially heading into this week with the 4xe. I was really looking forward to driving this thing. That had nothing to do with it. I just wasn't convinced that this was the best of the bunch, but I quickly changed my mind. This is unlike anything I have ever driven before. Now let's talk about what's under the hood. You get the same 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that you can get on its own, but the electrical components, yeah, they make the performance package perfectly tailored to this vehicle. That all-important 80 to 120 passing move, it's not a problem. It's actually kind of peppy. Now, it doesn't sound all that great, pretty unrefined with that gas engine running, but it's nothing to worry about. Now, on its own, that gas engine makes 270 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, which isn't bad at all. But when you factor in the 2 electric motors and the battery pack that feeds them, those numbers jump to 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. That is a lot of output. Now, the bad news is it does add quite a bit of weight. This Rubicon I'm driving, it weighs about 5,200 pounds. That's 750 more than the 4-cylinder version on its own. And I am curious to see how that factors in out on the trail, but I have to say, out on the road, there's nothing wrong with it at all. If anything, it actually helps the driving feel. You guys know as well as I do, the Wrangler hasn't exactly been known for its driving dynamics. And this thing still wanders like a senile old man at anything above highway speeds, but it's not as bad as your average Wrangler. Having all that weight down low in the body really lends a hand. Your hands are still going to be busy on the highway, as you can see. And don't forget, this thing has the aerodynamics of a shoebox. So on a windy day, it really gets pushed around. And you have to work a little harder than your average vehicle to keep it moving in a straight line. But I'm telling you, that weight definitely helps. And it also helps with the fuel efficiency. Yes, this is a plug-in hybrid. And according to Jeep, if you plug this thing overnight or hook it up to a fast charger, you get about 35 kilometers of emissions-free driving range, which might not seem like much, but there's more to the story than that, because if you drive it like normal with it in hybrid mode, well, it behaves like a conventional hybrid. So it uses the gas engine as well as those electric motors. They both kind of work in unison, but there are a couple different modes, so you can set it to electric mode, and that means it'll burn up that battery before switching over to the gas engine, or there's an e-save mode. And what that does is it preserves the battery for later use. But the cool thing is, it still chips in here and there out on the road. Now, earlier this week, I went for my usual evaluation drive. It was about 220 kilometers. Most of it was on the highway, and I headed in that e-save mode. When I left, the battery was topped up to 95%. Well, according to the computer, after the drive, 20 of those 220 kilometers, they were all electric. But when I got home, the battery was still at 95%. And that's because I had it in e-save mode, and I also had the regenerative brakes set to their maximum setting. Now, unlike that Mustang Mach-E I just reviewed, and you already watched that video, well, these brakes, they don't let you do one pedal driving, so it won't come to a complete stop on its own, but it is pretty close, and they're not too grabby. I like these brakes a lot, and they help keep the battery topped up. So you might see it drop a couple percent here and there, but then it jumps back up. And same thing with today. I left this morning at 95%. I'm looking down here, I'm still at 95. Something else about it really helps with the fuel efficiency. On that drive the other day, I burned 10.4 liters per 100 kilometers, which isn't bad considering this is a Jeep Wrangler and it's built like a brick. I drove all the way here in that e-save mode this morning as well. So where's here? Well, it's called the Minden Off-Road Park, otherwise known as Ray's Place, and I'm here to meet some members of the Central Ontario Off-Road Jeep Club so we can see how this Wrangler 4xe keeps up and what these guys think of it. I'm also going to switch over into all electric mode so we can see how far I can go on nothing but electrons, so I'll see you guys on the other side.
Turn that thing on. You don't hear the scrape so much with the engine running.
All right, guys, we've been out here for about 4.5 hours. And first of all, I want to say we are having so much fun. And second of all, I know this isn't going to come as much of a surprise, but this is a Wrangler Rubicon. And that means it's very capable. Some of these obstacles are pretty gnarly, but there are a few things I want to say about them. First and foremost, I did have it in all electric mode for as long as I could. And we probably did a good maybe 2.5 hours before we ran out of juice and the gas engine kicked in. And I know I said it was unrefined out on the road, but out here on the trail, I just don't like listening to this 4-cylinder at all. It sounds awful. It's very whiny. With the transfer case engaged in 4 low especially, that gearing it really struggles with. It doesn't struggle to actually power this thing, it just sounds atrocious. I'm sure you could hear that, and we're about to do a bit of a hill climb here, and there's some rocks, so you'll probably hear it again. That part is no good, but I do have to say the capability is unquestioned. Now, the other things I do want to say, look, there's no hiding all that weight. Like I said, 750 pounds or so heavier than the 2-liter on its own, and you can feel it. And it's not so much that it drags you down, it's just when you're going over obstacles, it really thuds. When you drop down over a big rock, you can really feel all that extra weight. It is like having, 3 heavy passengers with you. But it hasn't really been a hindrance to this thing, and I think that's the key takeaway for me. And the other thing is, all that extra torque of the electric motors when I had juice, amazing. Love to have that, and you can really feel it, and that, again, is just one more reason why this is, in my eyes, the Rubicon to get. And then the last thing I do want to say, some may call it cheating out here, but I absolutely love these trail cams, especially the forward-facing camera. That has been such a huge help out here, especially some of these rocks are massive, and whether you want to go over them or around them, it's nice to have eyes on them, because the other cool thing is it gives you tire tracks. It shows you where your tires are, and when you turn the wheel, these yellow lines turn with you, so you know exactly what's happening. That is very cool. Now, don't forget, this is the Wrangler Rubicon, so there's all kinds of good stuff that help out on the trail. It's got solid front and rear axles with locking differentials, as well as beefier suspension, these all-terrain tires. There's even an electronic disconnecting sway bar. It's all very cool stuff. Pretty unnecessary if you're not actually going to use it, but really helps when you're out on a trail like that one. And the suspension and tires, they actually make it pretty comfortable out on the road too. I have to give it credit though. Wind noise is atrocious. And don't forget, this thing is just very boxy and upright, so that's a big part of the problem. It's hard to have a conversation in here. But I could live with it, but one thing I struggle with is the price. And it's not just about this one, it's any Wrangler, and it's not so much the base price, it's all the stuff you have to pay for. Take these seats. Okay, fine, I don't mind paying $1,100 or whatever it is to get this leather. That's not a problem for me, but to get heated seats and a heated steering wheel, to have to shell out an extra $1,000 for that to me is just ridiculous. And same goes with all the advanced safety stuff. I'm talking front and rear parking sensors, adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking, blind spot monitoring. None of that is standard. Add it all up and you're gonna pay $2,800 extra. That's just ridiculous to me. Even these proximity sensors on the door handles, $500. So once you add all that stuff to this one I'm driving, it's 75 grand out the door before tax. That is a lot of money. So here's the way I look at it. I would be taking a long, hard think at the options I was adding to my Wrangler if I was in the market. But one thing's for sure, I would be adding them to this plug-in hybrid. To recap, I like the driving experience the Wrangler 4xe delivers that's unique where it matters while still packing all the capabilities this Jeep is known for, and the relative fuel efficiency. I don't like how expensive it gets, especially with some options that should be included in the price of this Rubicon, how much it wanders on the road, or how unrefined the engine sounds. I hate to admit, but I was feeling a little skeptical going into this week. Not that I had anything against this plug-in hybrid, I just didn't think it could deliver efficiency that was that much better than the average Wrangler or the same kind of familiar driving feel and capability, but I was wrong. It delivers that and more, and it has that outstanding efficiency and the ability to run on nothing but electrons out here on the trail. It's for all those reasons and more that I think if you're in the market for a Wrangler Rubicon, this 4xe is the one to buy.